Hey guys, this is Lim. Many of you guys have been asking for a comparison between the Honor 8 V10 and the newest Honor 10. So I actually got my hands on both these devices to show you guys a quick comparison. Okay, so once we open the boxes, both packages actually are pretty similar. Both have a casing, the transparent casing, and they only come with the quick charge charger as well as a Type-C cable. So there's no hands-free whatsoever, and that's the only items that you get in the box. So let's get that out of the way. Okay, so once we get the devices out of the box, what's most important is the mobile devices themselves. So if you can see here, this is the V10 and this is the Honor 10. So the most obvious thing obviously is the change in design for the back. The V10 uses a metal aluminum back, whereas the Honor 10 goes with a glass back. So it really looks very attractive on the new Honor 10, whereas on the V10 it's just your standard aluminum. If you flip it to the front, you'll see that the V10 sports a bigger display, whereas the Honor 10 has a nice display but with a notch at the top. So like I mentioned in my previous video, this notch is removable. You can go to settings and just remove the notch. So it will be a black bar right at the top. Okay, so both these devices are very similar to one another. Let's just go through the similarities before we talk about what's different about these two devices. So first of all, let's talk about the processor. Both these devices use the Honor Kirin 970 processor. They both have 6GB of RAM. They both have 64 gigs of internal memory, and both devices, of course, still has the headphone jack at the bottom. They both also support quick charge. So these devices basically have some very strong and powerful hardware to run all apps smoothly and efficiently. So now that we've got the similarities out of the way, let's talk about the differences. The main difference between both devices, as you can see, is the display. So the V10 has a larger display, whereas the Honor 10 has a smaller display. Meanwhile, the Honor 10 comes with Android 8.1 out of the box, whereas the V10 comes with Android 8.0. Another difference with the devices are the camera. So both has a dual camera, whereas one is a monochrome sensor. So the one on the V10 is a 16 plus 20 megapixel camera, whereas the one on the Honor 10 is a 16 plus 24 megapixel camera. So the camera on the Honor 10 is supposedly better than the one on the V10. Next, we move on to the front-facing camera. So the front-facing camera on the Honor 10 also has received an upgrade. The one on the V10 is 13 megapixels, whereas the one on the Honor 10 has 24 megapixels. So that is 9 megapixels more, and it really shows when you take selfies. When it comes to battery, the larger V10 of course has a bigger battery than the Honor 10. The V10 has a 3750 mAh battery, whereas the Honor 10 only has 3400 mAh. So that's the similarities and differences between both devices. But those are just specifications on paper. What's most important is how both these devices perform in real life. So let's just jump into that right away. Okay, so I've been using both devices for a few days now, and let's just talk about the back panel on the Honor 10. So if you've seen my previous video of the Honor 10, it has a more purplish color when I tilt the device, but somehow this particular device that I bought is completely blue. So I purchased the same color, but the previous one had a nicer purple to it, whereas this does not really have some purple. But yeah, whatever. It still looks better than the one on the V10 because it looks just a bit plain and boring right now. Next, let's talk about the display. So I've set both displays to maximum brightness. And if you look really closely, you can't really see on the camera, but when you look at it personally, I feel that the Honor 10 has a better screen than the one on the V10. The reason for this is the contrast level seems just nicer, the reds are more saturated, and right out of the box, you don't have to tune anything. So if you talk about viewing angles, the Honor 10 has a better viewing angle than the V10. Like when you shift the device to the side, you can still see the Honor 10's color very clearly. whereas on the V10 there is some slight fading, if you notice. Yep, so I prefer the display on the Honor 10, but if you like a bigger display, then the V10 is for you, because let's just face it, it's just a bigger display, but the one on the Honor 10 is sharper and it's better colored looking. Okay, so another difference I would like to talk about is the home button. So you can see the fingerprint sensor on the Honor 10 sits below the screen, whereas on the V10 it is just your standard typical home button. So let's just check this out. Both works pretty well. Let's do it again. So you'll notice that at certain times the fingerprint sensor on the V10 works quicker than the Honor 10. And I did mention before on my other videos, sometimes the Honor 10 fails to sense the finger on the button, but otherwise it works pretty well. So let's just do that another time. So you can see there is just a very slight slow difference between both devices. So this is just slightly quicker, but then again you have face unlock on this device on the Honor 10, and that is super quick. So if you use the Honor 10, I would recommend you use face unlock, because that's just so much more easier than scanning a fingerprint. Okay, so another difference that a lot of you may be interested in is the difference between the camera. So images taken with the newer Honor 10 appears much clearer and sharper than the one on the V10. The V10 is a great camera. It has a great camera. It takes great shots in the day and night. But somehow when you go to the Honor 10, you find that the pictures are just so much nicer and it works really well at night. So I will upload all photos taken between both devices onto my Flickr account, and I will share the link in the description below so that you can just check it out in detail. Other than that, battery life on both devices are pretty solid. So I have been using both devices and both are able to let me go through a full day with one charge. So you don't really have to charge your phone, and if you do, you have the quick charge that will charge it up really quickly, so you do not have to worry about battery. So just to repeat, battery life is great on both devices. I would say the V10 slightly edges out the Honor 10 by just having that slight bit more battery, but otherwise it's not really noticeable. Alright, with that being said, this brings me on to my conclusion. So if I had to choose between one device, I would definitely go with the Honor 10. The first reason for that is because of the design. I just love this design so much. I like the back, and I like the way how the camera looks on this device compared to the one on the V10. I just don't like the idea of seeing two round circular lenses sticking out of my phone. Next, I prefer the screen on this device as well. It is way sharper. It has better viewing angles, and I don't really mind the notch now. Next, the camera on the Honor 10 is also slightly better than that on the V10. I'm not saying that the V10 is a bad camera, but the Honor 10 takes some really good shots, and you can notice the differences when it comes to night shots as well as daylight shots. So this is a really good camera for taking photos at night. Apart from that, face unlock is also present on the Honor 10, and it is not available on the V10. So I really love how face unlock works on the Honor 10. It is just so quick and so convenient. So I would give it to the Honor 10 for having that feature. And last but not least, it is also slightly cheaper than the V10. So I don't know what's wrong with Huawei, but they just made the Honor 10s cheaper than the V10. So all in all, like I said, I would go with the Honor 10. But of course, if you just need a slightly larger battery or a wider screen, then maybe you can go with the V10. So that's it for my video today. I hope you like it. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. And I will see you guys in the next one. See ya!